in my opinion, staying active but not overdoing it is going to be important to recovery. I just hope this fan doesn't snap and hit me in the face, adding insult to injury. Just another day with an Achilles injury and on crutches, needing a backpack full of all my goodies for the journey from the living room to my bedroom. Hey guys, welcome back to this vlog. Sorry if this video comes across a little bit rushed. I am on my way out today, the first time I'm using public transport, and I'm leaving myself 2 hours to get somewhere rather than 1. I would say if you want to, maybe watch these videos back at ×2 speed. That's what I've been doing, so you can get through more content, which you're probably doing a lot of at the moment. And just for full transparency, I'm recording this video partway through week 3. By the time you see the week 3 end of week 3 vlog, you'll be up to date and you won't kind of be getting any benefit of me being ahead of that week, if that makes any sense. It'll be way more live. So in terms of where I'm at today, I am heading into London shortly. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going for a second opinion. So my experience so far with this issue has been to get injured, to go to A&E that evening, the next day to go to ambulatory care to get tested, blood tested to see if I'm okay to take blood thinners. I got prescribed blood thinners. And then it was a waiting game. I was told the fracture clinic would get back to me and speak to me within 2 days. They didn't. I chased them up a number of times. They actually called me 5 days after. So I got injured on Sunday. They called me on Friday to tell me they had not been able to book me for an ultrasound and they'd get in touch the next week. They then called me on Wednesday the next week to say that I could go for an ultrasound on the Friday. So that was about 13 days, 12 days post-injury, I was having my first ultrasound. So if you're going private, you would have probably had it a lot sooner. Some people, like I've said before, get operated on within a week. So I was only getting my first scan by that point. I was not that happy with the advice that I was given because I'd educated myself so much on this injury. And I would say it was a difficult conversation to tell the surgeon or orthopedic advisor what I looked at. So the three kind of routes, which are either go surgical or then you have conservative, but then there's 2 branches of conservative. There's kind of the traditional, go into a cast for a long period, 6 weeks, where your foot really deteriorates. And then the other one, which is initially cast for 2 weeks and then going into a boot where you start bearing weight on that foot. And there can be 2 different boots that you go into. You can go into something called an Aircast and a Vacoped boot. There are some studies around it, which I'll link to. I have decided, and I'll speak more about this in the week 3 vlog, that a Vacoped is going to be better because physiotherapists, even though there's been no clinical studies, so no real opinion given, they've done x-ray of feet in these boots. And the Vacoped just looks to be superior. I'm not going to speak too much about it, but I will link to some evidence that they've shown that the Vacoped keeps you more in this position, whereas another boot with wedges in it can sometimes look like it's in that position, but actually the important bit, your foot is actually flatter. So that being said, I've watched many vlogs and loads of people who use the Aircast for recovery, and they've had really good recoveries through the conservative route. So whichever one you end up getting given, again, you got to do the best with what you have, and I wouldn't get too bogged down on it and just think about recovery. The other thing I want to really quickly cover are my frustrations. So I'd say the first 2 weeks it's kind of new, so there's a little bit of I don't know what the word is, but you're kind of not getting too frustrated and you're just trying to get adjusted to this. I would say as week 1 progressed into week 2 and into week 3, I am getting more frustrated with certain things, and I thought it'd be kind of the reverse. I did mention that I was using a stool in the kitchen. That was unbelievably useful to wash my dishes, make my food. It literally felt like I wasn't on one leg, which I wasn't. That broke, so that actually for 2 days really took me backwards, and I felt way less independent, which mentally wasn't great. So I would definitely say that was my best investment. The other thing is showering. Showering, I think, is probably the thing that most people will find hardest about this injury, just because you have to get in and out of a bathtub. I don't know how people who aren't physically active and that strong do it, especially getting into a bathtub rather than walking into maybe an open shower or something. The one solution I found today, because I didn't actually want to shower before I left, was to kneel over the bathtub. I ended up washing my hair, washing my face, and using baby wipes just to clean some of myself. And I would say that's probably a good solution for someone who's struggling to get into the bathtub. Maybe you can do that once a week with someone's help, if that's what you can do. And the rest of the time you can maybe do, I think it's relatively safe, being on your knees and use wipes for all your bits or no bits. That's what I wanted to say. Oh, the other thing is I actually like washing my face, random, but kind of just a bit too aggressively, and hit my nose and it started to bleed. I'm on blood thinners at the moment, so I noticed that the blood kind of ran a little bit more and looked slightly different to usual. So I'm just keeping an eye on that. So you need to, if you're on blood thinners, which I imagine most people are, is just to make sure you notice any changes. If you're passing blood in your stools, for example, which I'm not, and anything else to do with that, just make sure you keep an eye on it. I'm consciously just seeing how quickly this nosebleed dries. So the other bits I wanted to talk about were research. So where I am in terms of my research. So as I said, I didn't have an adequate response from the NHS team. They put me into a boot. I was meant to start a new job that requires, I'm self-employed, a lot of physical movement the next day after I got injured. So this was a big kick in the teeth for me and affected my income. So I had this conversation with the orthopedic guy in the NHS. I told him how physically active and athletic I am, which is just a part of my lifestyle. And he still decided to put me into a cast for 6 weeks, which just went against everything I've heard. It also affected my ability to make money, get out there and move around, which I thought, if it's not required, why would I go down that route? So that's the reason I'm going to get a second opinion. The good thing is that the doctor recorded everything I had virtually told him, so I understood he had heard me into a recording device that gets recorded and saved on the system. It was just peculiar that I was getting really old-fashioned advice for someone who's young and athletic, which didn't make much sense to me. Hence, I am in week 3. I am sourcing a second opinion. It's really late, so I wish I kind of done this sooner, because maybe it would have impacted the route that I'm going down. I think getting surgery, if that is even a thing, which I'm not really sure about, would have been better sooner after the injury, at least from an effectiveness point of view. I think it is, but also I would just be on the recovery and mend sooner, so I'd be walking and doing what I need to a lot sooner as well. So I would say I've done a lot of research. So I think the one thing that people tend to focus on is the re-rupture rate. That seems to be really important when it comes to the data and studies. I'm going to link to all the stuff I've watched. There's a foot and health clinic foot and ankle clinic in Liverpool I found really useful. They spoke to someone who was part of the SMART, so Swansea study, that a lot of the UK, I believe, rely on in terms of their treatment of this injury. And the lady from Swansea talked us through their findings, which I believe was in 2014 or maybe even earlier than that. And I think it's really interesting because they go down the conservative route and they talk about how that happened. So the thing I can't get enough information on is the difference in final outcomes in terms of power. And I think the thing to really be mindful of is, even though clinical studies have so much numbers and they try and kind of make you more confident about a decision, which I think is a really good thing, at the end of the day, they're observational studies. So these are studies done on people who have either gone surgical route, conservative route, and then they feed back on how they feel. If they feel like they've been able to get back into their sport, how strong do they feel? It's just kind of a tick box exercise. You don't know how they recovered. You don't know what they did in recovery. You don't know how good they were with listening to their physio exercises. So it's just all individualistic. You don't know their BMI. There's just so many factors that don't get considered. So I think it's useful from a decision-making perspective. You also don't know if they went back into their sport aggressively, non-aggressively. There's so many factors to consider. So I would like to see more studies done on the power of the leg. I've seen some that refer to it, but again, I just don't have that much confidence. So I'm getting a second opinion, but even then, once I decide which road I'm going down, I'm just gonna try and recover the best I can and consider myself as an individual case and see where that gets me. I think it's probably not conducive to recovery to think about these studies too much and the outcome it might have. Once it's decided, it's a case of just recovering to the maximum you can, and at the point a year afterwards doing maybe some assessment to see where you're at, how much more work you need to do, and at that point, if it's a disappointing result, I don't know, maybe think about other options or changing your plans or whatever. But for now, I'm not trying to get bogged down with that. The other thing is there's obviously the functional route and the non-functional route. So you could just be in a cast for 6 to 8 weeks, which is what my NHS practitioner wants me to do. And there's the weight bearing route, which after 2 weeks they put you into a weight bearing boot, and that apparently helps when your Achilles is repairing. It helps indicate to the body which direction that the fibers should heal in, because initially they just heal in all random directions. So I can see the logic in that, and there seems to be, and they don't say it's a better treatment. I haven't heard anyone say it's better in terms of outcome, but they refer to putting a boot on as week 2 or week 3, if that's prescribed, as not being detrimental. So it is no worse than if you're in a cast for 6 weeks. So I personally, can't see the reason why you wouldn't do it unless your injury is really severe for some reason, or you're in an environment where you might trigger it again, to get into a boot, be weight bearing, and get more use of that leg where you can put partial weight bearing in the beginning and then weight bearing afterwards. So those are the treatments. I'm going to link to all the studies. I am conscious I'm rushing through this and I'm not really delivering it how I wanted to, but please have patience. I'm also rushing into London now to get my second opinion. So in week 3, I hope to give you a way more concise view of where I get to. The other thing that I think is really useful, have been 2 other podcasts that have been amazing for me. So big shout out to SJ. The SJ got injured, I think 5 years ago, and did an amazing vlog on his recovery. And you get to see where he's at if you're picking up now, 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 years later. And he went the conservative route. So I'm going to link his podcast, and thanks SJ, because it was really so good. I can't actually explain. And the other one is from a well-known influencer, not someone I knew beforehand or followed. His name is Matt Does Fitness, I believe. I'll again link his. And he goes the surgical route. He's someone with a very athletic background. I think it's been really informative for me because he actually lives in England and London in the same place that I am. So it's been useful from a perspective of resources too. I would say the thing I love about his podcast is the first episode, where I think we can all relate. I didn't take this injury that seriously, even until I was sort of in a cast maybe. But the point at which you get told you might need surgery, or this is really going to be debilitating for the next 12 weeks, there's like this really down moment, and you can see it because Matt Does Fitness has a really well-known YouTube channel. He has his own video recorder. He actually takes you on this journey, and you can see the emotional side when he comes out of his consultation with a surgeon that, oh damn, this is going to need surgery. You also get to see the later parts where he's on the upward trajectory. But I think it's all useful for us to kind of see where someone experiences that downside that I know we all would have done in experiencing this injury, and how it has impacted our lifestyles. Right guys, I am now probably running, not late, but not as early as I want to be for my appointment. Take care and tune into the next one where I will be more up to date, and there are a couple more kind of significant updates that I can tell you in that one. You might have seen me looking at my leg, and that's the biggest one. Okay, alright, I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks guys, bye bye.